Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we have the opportunity to do an exploratory. We're going to do a diagnosis on this one. It's a relatively unused Penn Battle II. It's in beautiful condition all around, but it has a problem. When you turn the reel, well, that spool doesn't go up and down. There's something wrong with the oscillation gear. So we're going to show you how to take the reel apart, do the diagnosis, and then we'll make sure we order the proper parts, because it's almost certainly a broken piece inside, maybe more than one piece broken. And well, we'll get them ordered and we'll be able to reassemble and finish the service of this reel. But what we'll do is we'll explain how to take the reel apart. That way you'll be able to see how to take it apart yourself. We'll do that examination to find out what's broken, but we'll tell you how to finish the service of the reel, assuming that those parts were not broken as well. Well, if you like these types of videos and if you want to see more, I would ask you to subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That notification button will tell you when I'm posting videos. And I work on all kinds of fishing reels. This one happens to be a spinning reel, primarily used in salt water or from piers or boats in the lake. But tomorrow it might be a low-profile bait caster. The next day it might be an ocean trolling reel followed by a freshwater bassing reel. You never know. And that's kind of what makes this fun. Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to remove the exterior pieces so I can get inside. I'm taking the spool off, and the spool has an adjuster button on it. To remove that, turn that adjuster button, well, kind of like what it says, more or less. You want to move it in the less direction. That will eventually take it off. This one, the Battle, which makes the Battle different from the Fierce and the Pursuit, is that it has a bearing on the shaft there. Interestingly enough, this also has a bearing, I believe, under here. Yeah, I have it under here, but it's backwards. Don't know how that happened, but you can see that there's a clip here, a 5-sided clip that's supposed to hold the bearing in the spool here, and it's actually holding it on the post. So maybe that one's actually reversed. I guess that is actually reversed. It's holding it on the post there. Okay. Once we have that off, it becomes a little easier or more manageable to take the case off. Let's go do that. I'm going to remove the handle. Now, the handle, if you're turning the reel in a clockwise manner, then the handle comes off by backing it in a reverse manner. This is a screw-in handle, so you can do this. Some handles have through rods that go all the way through the main gear. And if you're not sure what you have, remove the other side's cap and check to see if there's a screw in there, if that cap is not turning. You don't want to over torque and try and remove a handle only to find out that it goes through. You'll break the reel. Well, some of you are admiring this new board that I have, and that comes courtesy of channel viewer Cons and his friend Jimmy, who were kind enough to put it together and send it to me. I guess they got tired of looking at my other board, and I appreciate their efforts. And maybe you're even noticing that, well, that's mounted in a direction that you can actually see it, as opposed to having it mounted kind of facing me. And that comes from another channel viewer. So why don't you turn your decal around a little bit so everybody can see it. So there you go. I'm always open to suggestions and comments about how to better the channel. And well, if it's something like the boards and the thing, and doesn't take much effort, why not, right? I'm taking the 3 side plate screws out now. The side plate screws go on my tabletop first because I want to make sure they're all the same size. One of the things to note on these screws is that there is a little plastic washer that's a sealing washer, and make sure that you have them after you remove the screw. It's kind of hard to see there, but they're there. And if you don't have them, check in the cavities here. They may be remaining there. All right, we got one more here. We want to remove the bump guard. And as I mentioned, this is almost always a broken part. And I've had folks that have gone to flea markets, yard sales, or wherever, didn't do a full test on the reel. They turned it, it spun nice and easily, and they weren't even paying attention to the fact that the axle shaft wasn't going up and down. And In this case, I think the fellow knew something broke, just didn't know what. Okay, the side plate is not anything to do with the oscillation problem we're having. So let's just take a quick look at the anatomy of a reel, and then we're going to figure out what's wrong here. This reel has a main gear on it. The main gear drives this big gear behind. That's called the pinion gear. That makes the rotor spin round. You'll see the main gear and the rotor spin at the same time. That also drives what behind it is called the oscillation gear. There's a secondary gear on your main gear behind there, and that'll turn the oscillation gear. And then the oscillation gear should have a stud on it, and that stud will make this go up and down. Well, it appears, at least at the beginning, that the oscillation gear is turning, so I guess a candidate here might be that the stud has broken off the oscillation gear. Wow, if that's the case, I don't see that very frequently. And what that would mean is that this reel may have been involved in a snag or some other tangle up on Davy Jones' locker and the like, and somebody tried to power out of it by cranking the reel. And if you crank the reel, something's got to give. That stud would be a candidate for something to give, although again, as I mentioned, I don't see much of it. To get a better look now, we're going to remove the screw that's on that crosswind block, and we're going to pull up and out on the axle shaft. Now the axle shaft came out nice and easy. That means that wasn't bent. We can take the main gear out, and the next thing you want to look at is the gear that is driving the oscillation gear missing teeth. Now that usually, if it was missing teeth, that would usually mean that you had an erratic oscillation, but it would be going. And this one seems to be fine. The main gear seems to be in good condition on both sides. So let's remove the crosswind block, and as I mentioned, there's not that many more culprits that can be in there. We're down to an oscillation gear issue or a crosswind block issue, and there you go. So the crosswind block is in good condition, but it's got a hitchhiker. That's the little stud we were talking about. That stud, a little piece of metal right there, belongs on the oscillation gear, and it rides in that channel, but it shouldn't be hitchhiking in that channel. So what's happened here is this is the oscillation gear. Let's see if we can get that out of there. There's a connecting point for that stud. That stud belongs, of course, with all that grease and goop, you'd think you'd be able to do it, but I'm not being able to do it. Belongs like that, turned 90 degrees. Well, that's broken off. Well, if that breaks off, there's no way that the piece can drive, as it goes around, drive the crosswind gear up and down to cause the axle shaft to go up and down. All right, we need to order the oscillation gear. I just want to make sure that this is not harmed. We did see it just kind of channeled over to the side, but just take a look, make sure that there are no chips or cracks or breaks in your crosswind block, because if you're ordering one part, as most of us know who have to order parts, the part can be relatively inexpensive, and you're going to pay $5 or $6 or $7 in shipping. No sense to order the one and then find out that you need to order the other and have quite a bill going on there for shipping because you did a double or a triple. In this case, the main gear looks to be fine. The oscillation gear needs to be replaced, and it probably makes good sense to go and spend the extra $1 or $2 on the crosswind block and go ahead and get that one done as well. The rest of this reel seems to be relatively healthy. It's spinning nice and freely. We've identified the source of the problem, and if you were to rebuild the reel now, you're at the point where once you've done your parts inspections, it's time to reassemble, and you reverse your steps. So your first piece in would be the oscillation gear with the stud on it. Then put your crosswind block on. Then insert your main gear. Then bring your axle shaft through. You can't bring the axle shaft through before you put the main gear in because it'll bump on the back end of that. You won't be able to get the main gear in. put the screw onto your crosswind block to tighten up the axle shaft and close the reel up. You're ready to go back fishing again. To service the top end, this is exactly how you need to be. Base case empty. Remove the screw and the nut that's holding on the rotor. Remove the rotor. Underneath you'll find a bearing and an anti-reverse assembly. Those need to be cleaned, checked. It'll give you an opportunity to clean out that pinion gear, clean the back of the case behind that pinion gear, and then go ahead and grease or oil the bearing and reinstall, greasing the pinion gear. Well, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the little diagnosis of what's wrong with this wheel. I'll go order the part. I use MrParts.com for Penn parts, and I will order the part, and we'll be able to get this wheel back out there fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of these, please subscribe, and if you do subscribe, please use that notification button to see what I'm posting, including probably the rebuild of this wheel when that part comes in. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thanks for watching, and thanks for everything it is that you do. And to everyone, please stay safe, stay well, stay watching, and have a great day on the water. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.